When observing the modern family, the standard cultural narrative assumes the structure is failing because of shifting moral values. However, this overlooks a measurable structural shift. The family unit is being aggressively repriced economically and recoded socially by forces outside its control. National arguments regarding rent, childcare, school curricula, and digital privacy no longer exist as abstract debates. They land directly inside the home as daily, unavoidable conflicts. Because these external pressures converge entirely within the household, the daily experience of the average family has become the most accurate barometer for the stability of the nation itself. To understand the state of the family, we have to look past its internal choices and start measuring the weight it is being forced to carry. For decades, large institutions, single-income economies, and strong community networks acted as buffers, absorbing global economic shocks before they reached the individual. As these institutional safety nets have receded, they have left individual households directly exposed to market volatility and social instability. This exposure has turned the modern household into society's primary shock absorber. A shock absorber is designed to take on the violent, kinetic energy of a larger system. Today, families absorb the impact of inflation, housing shortages, and the collapse of elder care so the broader society can continue to function. When systemic failures are outsourced to the home, the household stops being a place of rest and begins operating in a state of permanent tension. The most immediate pressure is the rising entry cost of adulthood. This chart shows the housing market data from Harvard's 2025 report. High prices and interest rates have pushed home sales to their lowest level in 30 years. In response to these market conditions, 58% of adults ages 18 to 24 remained in their parental homes in 2025. This visualizes the scale of total U.S. household debt, which reached $18.8 trillion by the end of 2025. That debt is distributed across $13.17 trillion in mortgages, $1.67 trillion in auto loans, and $1.66 trillion in student loans. Milestones like independent homeownership and marriage are being delayed by these mathematical realities rather than a lack of desire. The financial repricing of the family has triggered a second scarcity, a crisis of available time. By 2025, 74% of mothers and 94% of fathers with children under 18 were in the labor force. When most households require 2 full-time incomes to survive, the time required for raising children becomes a scarce resource and a source of political friction. Public opinion is deeply split on whether the answer lies in government-funded childcare, tax credits, or a return to a single-parent-at-home model. The modern household is effectively being asked to manage intensive child-rearing while stripped of both financial margin and waking hours. As families lose time and money, the physical safety nets that once supported them are also thinning. This chart plots the decline in interpersonal trust. In 1972, 46% of U.S. adults said most people can be trusted. Today, that number has dropped to 34%. In a low-trust environment, parents have fewer neighbors to rely on for informal help and fewer shared community norms to lean on. To fill this void of human support, families are increasingly turning to digital ecosystems. 40% of children have tablets by age 2. 1 in 5 teens are on TikTok almost constantly, and 64% are using AI chatbots to navigate their daily lives. The traditional village of physical neighbors is being replaced by algorithmic feeds and digital identity communities. Families are more technically connected to the global information stream than at any point in history, yet they are increasingly isolated from the people in the same room. Instead of connecting, relatives often retreat to their own separate digital corners to cope with the overwhelming exhaustion of the modern day. This internal isolation is a predictable outcome for a system that has run out of the emotional bandwidth needed for connection. Under these relentless economic and social pressures, the household is being trained to function as a defensive survival unit. This shift changes the very nature of the family. The focus moves away from deep relational bonds and community hospitality toward the logistics of simply making it to next month. When basic survival becomes the primary goal, The patience and focus required for generational teaching and spiritual growth are the first things to disappear. Fixing the modern family requires moving past the habit of blaming its internal choices for breaking under weight it was never meant to carry. If the household is to be restored, we must address the massive economic and digital systems that are currently crushing it from the outside in.